I really take my work serious. It takes a lot of energy to really do these readings that I've been doing lately because I'm doing world readings. See, before when I came, I guess part one when I was in the phase of Ram Hotel, which is really like my situation with a bunch of different partners, of which I'll probably get into in the future because it does link into this topic that I'm on. See, I was more like in that phase. I was more like in the beginning phase, so I didn't really quite, I guess, see the seriousness. I mean, I always took my work serious, but I didn't quite see the seriousness in the aspect of the currency that's being exchanged on the internet. Even if you're just a minute person, I mean, you really are probably entitled to a lot of money, but will you get that money? That's kind of what this topic is going to lead to. That's going to depend on as to whether or not the internet community actually stays a community, or if we or they, or depending on how you want to look at it, allow the machines and the robo-toys to deactivate everything and eventually take over everything. And then that's going to make everybody become more like individuals, which is going to kind of freeze a lot of the wealth on the internet. Because this is a fight over money. Don't let them get you sidetracked. They want you to think about everything else: racism, Black Lives Matter, all of this stuff. The mask thing or whatever. They got this thing with the mask on it, making people wear this mask. I got this mask from damn Hong Kong and shit. But they pretty much got people in this mode like right now, and it's really about money though, and that's what I'm going to get into because, like I was saying, like they visured me in my past life. The police did, and the fraternal order of the police is what it's called here. Don't take that lightly, because yes, on the outward it's enforcement. You can get arrested. They want to charge you with stuff and this and that, but they are highly advanced occultists. And they know a lot, actually. Have a lot of data and information about the occult that they have not ever released or whatever on this planet right now. And you'd have to be really like an advanced, I guess, reader to kind of like pick up on it because it's very sophisticated. But I'm not really addressing. I could address a lot of it on a broad level, but I want to address what I'm talking about on a personal level as to what happened to me because I think it makes a better teaching piece. So like, as I was reading some of the material, because I got access to some of the material, I had to actually purchase it. So like when I'm saying I'm making all this money and all of this, and that people think I'm lying because they're like, well, look how you look. How are you making this money? First and foremost, you got to understand, it's not money the way that you think it may be. Money functions on so many levels. So for instance, you look at the term money, for instance, you see a flag in it, first and foremost. So you're not counting any money unless you're counting it up under maybe one or two or various different flags, first and foremost. So like when you talk about money, you see a flag in it, and the flag is actually traveling to some form of a commodity. That's what money is. It's from some form of a nation to some form of a commodity. That's what you talk when you talk about money on my perspective. So like anything else, I don't really know, like what these people talk about when they talk about making these purchases and buying these things that aren't assets, like cars and stuff like that like depreciate. I'm not talking about that. I'm just keeping it real. I'm not trying to be arrogant, but I'm serious because this is how the world market functions. So I'm saying all that to say, so like on the fraternal order, the police, they know all of this already. So they have, I'm just gonna get straight into it. The sheriffs, all of that, they know about this. They have what's called a vision folder. I'll just call it that. And it's called a visual currency. So when you talk about, and it's serious, and when you talk about vising someone, you're dealing with a visual currency. And this visual currency actually goes back to, you have to study a lot about Venus and astrology because they have records of this visual currency going all the way back to like before the Pleiadians came from Venus to this planet, calculating the worth of like all the churches. Like when you talk about like, say for instance, the Statue of Liberty, or when you talk about like, say for instance, I think they have a Statue of Liberty in France as well too, or when you talk about like the pyramids, they have value. This has market value, but you're not going to measure it in dollars and stuff like that. You're going to measure it in a visual folder. It's called a Visa folder. So like when a person, so they keep track of this, right? So like when you die, this folder gets transferred to some form of a data folder. And it gets passed down to your children and get passed down. So like if you come back and reincarnate, you're supposed to inherit this folder. However, over time, we lost the knowledge of it. So I found the knowledge of my folder, and that's why I said I'm in the form of a $10 million loan is what I call it. You may call it a lawsuit, but sovereigns don't sue. We just loan to people. So I'm in the process of giving a $10 million loan that I'm serious about. And I don't care how long it takes. Through various different outlets, be it social media, traveling, teaching, and educating, I'm in the process of giving a loan out because I was Visa in my past life. Seriously. I'm going to get into like the proof and everything over in future episodes based on this currency that was being exchanged back then and is still being exchanged based on this experiment that took place with us that we know nothing about. So we are connected to like this supercomputer based upon this experiment in the 1800s that's in the middle and the center of the earth. There's a supercomputer, and we're connected to that supercomputer right now. We exchange data through that supercomputer. I'm not going to go into, there's various ways to get there. There's various different fakes of this computer. Keep mind you, people have been murdered trying to find this computer. When you go in the pyramids, you see all this electricity and radio technology and stuff like that. Where did they get this stuff? How did they know about radio technology back then? It's because it's nothing new. It was a part of the same experiment. We're just in a certain process of it, right? So when you talk about, I'm going to leave and shut down with this just to give you an example. So like, yeah, I say I may have generated $1 million, but then I may have to Visa that or invest that $1 million into something. So in business, we don't lose money. See, that's the thing, like when people work jobs and stuff like that, when you spend money, you pretty much look at it like you lost it. The only thing you have is your receipt and, you know, your tax records, and you may can get money back through your taxes, but that's where it stops. However, when you deal with money, real money on the international market, you never lose anything. So what happened with me was that, yeah, I Visa like $1 million of my past life within, not $1 million, excuse me, $100,000. Trying to get to $1 million in my past life within the past couple of months, but then I'm dealing with situations with law enforcement where they came back and I Visa'd me and charged me like tickets. Come and I Visa'd me and took, not really take, but I'll say exchange, took some of my commodities or exchanged some of my commodities to put into their pot. And this is how they operate. They do it all the time. So you see them with their little flashing lights and they doing this. They're visaing you. They're visaing that neighborhood even. They may be visaing something in that neighborhood. You may not really know what they're doing. You got to be trained in knowing how this works and what time of the day. And it's based on astrology, believe it or not. Like Plato and all of them, they kept the records of how much, you know, how to I visa and how to determine the value of different things when it comes to different structure, when it comes to homes that may be owned by people that may be linked into other people's land. This is worth something. This is called a visa. So I went through a big one last night. So that's why I'm trying to stay on the air. That's why I'm dropping these videos rather quick because of the fact that I need to stay on the air. They're trying to knock me off the air. This shit is serious, man. It's like Star Wars or something. Like, I don't know if you remember that guy on Superman. I'm gonna give you an example, and I got to shut down. My airtime is out now. See? But I don't know if you remember that guy on Superman. He had like a vision, right? Like he could look at you and blow up a building. This was the old Superman back in the 80s. He could look at you. For those of you that are kind of young, you got to go check out the old Superman back in the 80s, the first one. He could like look at the buildings or like look at a building and it'll just blow up. He was like a bad guy. He was the one hunting Superman down. That's a vision folder. They do that with money and units. Not just money, but currency and different, and notes too. Fiat notes, cars, all of that. It's a part of it, but it's just a lesser, drugs even, oil, dope, whatever, gold. But it's different versions of it and how it will work in scales. So I got to go ahead and shut down this video, but that's how they do. So that guy in Superman, that's what, when I talk about that, that gives you an idea of how it operates. There are people really walking around with this ability. They have other abilities too, and they're just not telling people about it. There's all kind of Borgs walking around. So rise up, man. Don't be stuck in the old past, man. They're not teaching people the truth, man. Don't get stuck in the old consciousness. It's time to update this shit. So I'm going to come back at you as quick as I can. I don't know. But I thank you for listening and watching.